Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Nina Elise and I am a mindset and manifestation coach helping people go through life transitions and manifest their dream lives. So in today's video, I'm going to dive into human design and being a manifestor in human design. So this is part 3 of a series that I'm doing. These are questions that have been asked by previous clients and people sending me messages and commenting below my videos. So I'm going to be answering a few questions today. As a 4/6 emotional manifestor, I'm here to share a lot of my experiences, a lot of my own trial and errors so that you can thrive in your business as a manifestor as well. So we'll explore how to navigate rest cycles as a manifestor in business, making decisions and working for someone else. One of the biggest things that people come to me about is being a manifestor in a rest cycle and also needing to make money at the same time. So how can I rest when I need to make money? Rest cycles are really long before my next urge comes in, and I typically hop from one thing to the next. So I'm not staying consistent with what I'm doing. So how can I actually make money? And this is all completely normal. However, I will say that when you are approaching business through the lens of human design, we can tend to get really caught up on whether we're doing something right or wrong. And when we have gone through years of chronic burnout trying to be a generator when you are a manifestor, then it's going to be difficult to just flip a switch and figure out how to do it right away. There's very deep conditioning. So there is a period of time where you are going to be deconditioning and figuring out what works for you, and that does require a lot of experimentation. So first off, I just want you to give yourself as much grace as possible as you are going through this process to figure out what works for you. It's the actual pressure that we are putting on ourselves to have to make money or to be a certain way because we are manifestors in human design. And all of that pressure just creates more chaos and more pressure over time to actually do something or to make money, which makes us actually do things that are not in alignment over time. So there are a few points that I want to touch on from these questions that were asked. The first is navigating long rest cycles and not losing momentum. So this is something that I really struggled with when I first learned about human design, because over the years, as I have gone through my urges and my own rest cycles, a lot of my urges, I would just try to cram as much of my ideas and get as much done as possible while I had the energy, and I would end up dragging it out and getting super burnt out at the end. And then I would be in a super long rest period, which was basically a burnout recovery period. So I wasn't able to tap in or have the energy to execute other urges that came through. And over the years, as I have experimented with this and gotten better with this, I began to realize that there is no good or bad way or right or wrong way to end my urges. And when I say that, it means that even though there's so much more I want to do with an urge, I can actually pause and trust that everything that I have done is absolutely perfect. And I say this because I have gone through urges where I'm like, wow, there's so much more that I want to do, but I actually need to give myself rest. My body needs to rest. And typically when I do that, either the rest cycle is super short, or I actually just need a few days of really deep rest before I actually am still in an urge and I can still continue on. By continuing to push through, we actually shorten the amount of time that we have in our urge because we're trying to get everything done and we end up burning ourselves back, when in reality, we just need to prioritize rest while we are in an urge so we don't burn ourselves out more quickly. And over time, you will realize that the things that you have done, the urges that you have worked on, you may not work on them for a couple months or a couple of years, and then you come back to them with fresh new eyes and you can work on it in a different way. And so as long as you are cultivating this deep trust in yourself with your connection with source or God or whatever you want to call it, you're going to understand that every single urge that comes through, you cannot lose momentum. You are not going to lose whatever you have worked on. There is a reason why you have worked on that at that point in time. And maybe you actually don't ever pick it up again, but you learned invaluable skills, you met with specific people, you did something different than you had before, and you are creating this knowledge base or the skill base in order to help you with something else in the future. We really don't know why we have these urges that we have, but when we start to give meaning to it, that it's all perfect, then we start to begin to cultivate that deeper trust within ourselves. And an example I can give you is that a couple years ago, I had this crazy urge to film a ton of very specific yoga videos, and I was super excited about it. I was spending anywhere from 5 to 15 hours on each video that I put out, and I had kind of stepped away from yoga. I hadn't really thought about continuing a career or doing anything with it, but it was this urge that came through, and I ended up filming all these videos and then went into a deep rest cycle. And I was like, I don't even know why I did all of that, but it brought me a lot of joy. It brought me a lot of excitement. It was definitely a Manifestor urge. And now a few years later, I am actually using these yoga videos and courses that I have created with my clients and the way that my business has come together. So in hindsight, when we are in the middle of something, we're not always going to understand why we have this urge or why we're doing the things that we are doing, when in reality, we're actually preparing ourselves for the future version of ourselves that will need whatever it is that we are working on. Another point that I want to touch on is that when you're going through a rest cycle, if you're looking at as this period of time where you are losing momentum or you're losing time and you're giving it this meaning that you are lacking in progress or moving forward, we can actually reframe that and say we are in a rest period so that we can sink deeper into more depth of how we're going to actually execute this urge and how we are going to move forward. So instead of thinking we have to do these big things to contribute to our big urges, we can actually just start to take apart the actual urge and work on small things over time while we are in a rest cycle. So it doesn't have to be this big thing that takes away so much of our energy. It can literally be simplifying what we are currently doing and not putting urgency behind it and working on it when we feel like it and when we have the energy. So our rest cycles don't have to be this negative thing where we're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make money? If I go into these rest cycles, how can I have a normal job? How can I be an entrepreneur and keep up with all of this stuff? And it's like, well, you're not actually meant to. You're meant to do it your way. And I promise you, when you are aligned with your rhythm and you own it and you trust it, over time, that is going to work for you and the money will come in with whatever you are doing. Because as long as you are honoring what works for you, you are going to have impact on every single person around you and they are going to notice that. And things will start to work in your favor because you're actually honoring what brings you joy, what your natural rhythms are. So instead of saying I have to fit into this box of how everyone else is doing it, and if I'm not doing it, then I'm wrong, and now I have all this pressure on myself to put a social post every single day and I have to do this, and what if I don't want to do that if I'm in this rest cycle? Okay, well, you don't have to. Like, you create the rules for you. And by saying this is what I love to do and these are my natural energy rhythms, allow the universe to work with you instead of you being forced to work in someone else's world and their rules. So remember, you are in charge of your reality with your perception, your thoughts, and the rules that you are making for yourself and your reality. So when you really tap into that power for yourself and realize that, you will start to allow other people to conform to your reality instead of you trying to conform and put pressure on yourself to conform to somebody else's reality. And I know you may be saying, but Nina, I have to make money. And I totally understand that. I have been there before and I still work for somebody else. I still do consulting work, but I actually enjoy it. However, it is not a high stress job that I put pressure on myself to do. This is something that I work part-time and I set healthy boundaries. I block off my calendars. I have basically manifested this job that works with my schedule and my rules. And what I would recommend is basically making a huge list of what your strengths and what your skills are, whether that's technical or working with kids, or maybe you're really good at organizing or project managing or whatever it may be. Really just do a brain dump of everything that you are naturally good at. And then taking a look at that list and either working with ChatGPT to provide recommendations for potential jobs that would work for you to fill all of those skills that you have that come natural for you, or you can start to look for jobs that might fit where all of your skills can be used and in a way that's beneficial for the company. So I say to do this exercise because you want to work with what you have instead of saying, oh, I have to go work at this job and learn these new skills and conform to this and do all of this. You don't have to. Work with what you have and reframe that, and know that there is a perfect position for you out there while you are building your business on the side, or while you are looking for something else that you want to do, or you're just plainly figuring out what you want to do next, so you can have that support. And whether that's a full-time job or a part-time job, that's up to you. You're the one who gets to decide who you work for, and the time that you give, and the energy that you give, and at what cost. The next thing I want to touch on is making decision as a manifestor in business. So this is really going to rely heavily on your authority. And so for the purpose of this video, I'll touch on the different authorities that manifestors have, but I also have a separate video that I will link here so you can go look at to see what that might look like, because I give examples in that video. Since I am an emotional authority, I'll provide an example for you based on how I actually make decisions in my business. So sometimes I look at something and I just know right off the bat, and those are really simple decisions for me. Honestly, it's just timing. It's timing for every single decision that you make. And if something is taking longer than you would like, and what I personally do is I check either potential limiting belief systems that I may have around something, or if I'm trying to rush something, or if I have attachment to it unfolding in a certain way, then I can be able to distinguish between what's in my mind versus what's my actual emotional wave. So before I make a decision as an emotional authority, what I tend to do is I'll get an idea in my head, and if I'm not feeling compelled, like as an urge to really work on something or to get started on something right away, I will write it down, I will tuck it in the back of my head, I will put it in a notes app in my phone, and I will just be like, okay, this doesn't feel right for me, and I kind of just like feel it out in my body a little bit. And if I don't have full clarity on beginning, or the resources aren't there, or I'm not entirely sure how to do it, I might do some research on it, and I'll kind of feel through that and what the possibilities are for moving forward with something. And over time, I will check back in on that idea and see how I feel and where I'm at. So an example of this would be creating this YouTube video. So I had an idea months ago from people contacting me and asking me questions about being a manifestor in business. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do videos like that, but it just didn't feel right. So I wrote it down and I came back to it and kept revisiting it, and it just didn't feel like the right time until last month, when I was like, I just woke up one day and I was like, it's time. And I just knew I had that emotional clarity. And so I took all of the actual questions that were given to me. I did research on all of those questions through Facebook groups and through different search engines for YouTube, and figured out what would be the best things that people really need help with as a manifestor in business, and then worked with ChatGPT to help me create an outline of how I'd actually create my videos. And then I got ready to actually film on specific days and plan that out. However, there are days where I just get a hit and I'm like, I'm just gonna turn on the camera and I'm just going to record this. So I think it really is figuring out what works for you and paying attention to your urges and your emotional waves and what feels right for you. For me, when something feels right, everything just seems to flow or to fall into place or come easily for me, or the resources become more readily available for me, and that is how I know it feels like the perfect timing. So if you are a splenic authority or you have a defined heart, then you can start to play around with how these things feel in your body with your splenic hits that you're getting and when you work on something or ideas that you have, because your timeline is much, much different than an emotional authority and what that person's decision making looks like. So I would say, whatever decision you make, again, it's cultivating that deep trust, even if something does not make sense, because there are things that I would love to just charge and go full on something when I get an idea, but if it doesn't feel right, it's like I have to wait. And again, that timing is everything, whether you are splenic or emotional or defined will. So really tapping into that and tapping into your authority is what is going to serve you best. And if things don't work out or it doesn't feel right for you based on your authority or just your intuition in general, just learning to really trust that, because things happen in their own timing and things are unfolding in ways that we can't even see or understand in the actual present moment. And the last thing that I want to touch on in this video is working for somebody else as a manifestor. So maybe you are a manifestor that is building out their business on the side and you're still working for somebody else and you want to create more freedom in your schedule, or maybe you're working for someone and you're like, this sucks and I want more freedom on my schedule. there are ways to work around this. One of the best books that I have found that has helped me as a manifestor in business is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. So I really love this book because it started to expand how I actually viewed my work schedule and how I can shift and change my time to work for me. So depending on what you do, you typically have control over your calendar, except for maybe those meetings that you don't always have control over when they pop up on your calendar. However, if you work in an office and you do have semi-control over your time schedule, you can actually block off times during the day or throughout the week that prevent people from scheduling time with you. And that can be time where you rest, or you go run errands, or you take a break, or you do something different that is outside of your typical work schedule and your responsibilities. This takes so much stress off of having to show up or to perform for 8 or 9 hours a day. And quite frankly, as manifestors, we're not necessarily meant to perform for 8 hours straight every single day. If you enjoy doing that, that's incredible, that's amazing, that's beautiful that works for you. For those who want more freedom in their schedules, it's learning to look at the schedule that they currently have and saying, how can I block off time for me to do things that I can prioritize for myself that can give me rest or rejuvenate me when I'm in the middle of my workday? Or can I block off times if I have meetings like every single day? Can I block off a time and maybe only do meetings once or twice a week and get them all done there? So then the rest of the week I can actually work on my week, and I can take breaks as needed that work for me, so that I don't feel this pressure to have to show up at a meeting and be fully ready and turned on when I just am not in a state to be doing that, or I need to be doing something else. If you work from home or you work remote, then even better, because now you can actually create a schedule that works for you. And obviously you can check with your bosses to see if this works for you as well. But what I have found for me as a manifestor, especially being an indirect light manifestor, I love to work at night. That's just when my brain turns on and when I feel my best. So the client that I'm working with right now that I do consulting work with, yeah, I have meetings throughout the day, but it's never like I'm gonna work for 8 hours straight. It might be I work for 1 or 2 hours, take 1 or 2 hours off, and throughout the day, I may not even actually do work, but then I'll work for 3 or 4 hours at night when everyone else is off their computers and they're not actually logged in. So I recommend seeing if there's some way that you can work out your schedule where you get to work during hours where you feel like you want to work or you can work. Because if you are working a 9-to-5 job, it is so important to communicate with your boss and with your company what your needs are. And I would say if you don't have any of that freedom or flexibility at all, that's something to, first of all, check in with your boss if they're cool, or your employer, and say, this is what I need and this is ideally what I would like. Even if it's something super small, like saying, I would like an extra hour during my lunch break and I will just work an extra hour at night or something if I'm allowed to do that. It can literally be anything. You can propose anything. And if you don't have that freedom or that flexibility in your job and you feel like a prisoner in your job, then honestly just go look for another job, because there are so many people out there who are looking for somebody with your specific skill set that will provide so much more flexibility for you and your schedule. So if you really want to get out of this loop of I'm a victim, I'm stuck in my job, this doesn't work for me, I'm so tired and I'm burnt out all the time, okay, well, let's start to take small steps that actually empower me, whether that's communicating my needs or looking for another job that actually does suit me and does pay me what I need. Because I'm telling you, you are so deserving of that, and it is possible. There are how many billions of people in this world, how many millions of companies, maybe millions or 1,000 or hundreds or thousands, I don't know how many companies exist that need employees with your specific skills. It is not impossible to think that you can leave your job and go to something that is better. And so that is your responsibility to step out of that limited or victim mindset and say, okay, I want something different, I deserve something different, and it is possible. And all you have to do is look. And if you are afraid to change because you are comfortable where you are at and you think that is the only place that you can be comfortable, then you can stay there. But just know that you're not going to be able to leave or do something different in your life and have a different experience unless you take that small step. So that might look like looking at your current fears, and tapping into that and what your belief systems are and saying, this is my job and my responsibility to look at this if I want something different in my life. So if this video resonated with you at all, leave a comment below and I will answer it and maybe even make another video for any other questions that anybody may have. And if you need more support as a manifestor or a manifestor in business, I offer one-on-one coaching, whether it is single sessions or long-term coaching, to help you look at your chart and figure out what is preventing you from moving forward or learning how to tap more into your unique skills so that you can thrive in your business or in your current role. You can go to my website at nina-elise.com and I will put a link in the description as well for you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so that you will always see when I put out a new video. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.